Hey, my name's Hyatt Gonzer, and in this video, I'm going to talk about some different kind of insights that I've gotten around these ideas of being versus awareness. So, like beingness, total beingness, calm, and awareness. And that might not really make a lot of sense yet, but I'm going to explain kind of what I mean by beingness versus awareness, and just sort of this idea that most people have around unity consciousness and what it means to be totally unified in this just like completely united consciousness. I think that there's a lot of ideas about what unity consciousness means and what it looks like, and maybe there's like different levels to it potentially, or things like that could look closer to what actual unity consciousness is. And a lot of people have this idea that unity consciousness is kind of good versus it being bad, like it's a good thing. But to me, unity consciousness is basically neutral. So I just want to share some insights that I've been pondering for a little while, a lot of which were really solidified in me by the use of psychedelics. So we'll just kind of get right into it. Awareness is anything that you're aware of. If you're aware of anything, then that's awareness. It's pretty simple. You kind of know that something's happening or you're feeling something. You don't even have to know intellectually, but you can know like sensory, like something can touch you. Maybe, something touches your nervous system. Okay, something in you is giving signals. And so that's awareness. You might not be aware that you're aware, like in lower animals. Sorry, the cat is kind of scratching a box, but say like in insects, and I don't actually know about the consciousness of insects, but it seems like insects are, most insects are mostly just basically like this nervous system that is kind of going off of sensory signals, and a lot of insects are just kind of like bumping into things and just like walking around until they either like find food or a mate or something like that. And I don't fully know how it works, but it seems likely that they're not necessarily making intellectual decisions. They're mostly just making decisions out of like sensory input, kind of like the environment is controlling their movement. But they are still getting sensory input and signals, so there is like some level of awareness there, I think. But I got this really strong epiphany around beingness and unity consciousness a couple of years ago that came from one doing a peyote ceremony and then soon after doing 5-MeO DMT. And 5-MeO DMT has been my only experience that I know of and can remember around like complete unity consciousness and what I'm calling beingness. Beingness might not even be the right word, but when I talk about beingness, I'm pretty much talking about complete unawareness of anything. And to me, that's unity consciousness, is when you are actually unconscious. Beingness is basically being unconscious of anything. If you have any sort of awareness, then you've basically broken out of the realm of beingness and unity. And once you start to become aware of sensory input and that you're having thoughts and that you realize that you're alive, things like that, if you can have any sort of distinction around anything at all, like something's in this spot and there's something over in this spot, or if you're like, if you can see something in the distance and be like, I am not that thing, then if you have any sort of like cognitive input or sensory input, then you're basically popped out of unity consciousness. Absolute beingness is completely unaware of itself. And I think of beingness as basically being the Tao. If you've read the Tao Te Ching, it kind of talks about how like the Tao is sort of the underlying thing that flows into everything else and gives it life and creation and all that. But the Tao is basically unaware of itself. It doesn't know of its power. It basically doesn't even know of its existence. And like the Tao was here before God. Is kind of what it says. because this idea of God and like of a creator that's already out of unity consciousness, if there's like one grand creator, then he had to pop, or it had to pop out of unity consciousness in order to start creating. So even God isn't unified. The only way for God to become unified is if it basically goes into a deep unconscious sleep where it's completely unaware of anything. And I don't fully understand how the cycle works of going in and out of awareness and going in and out of consciousness and unconsciousness, or going in and out of awareness and being. It seems like, it does seem like there is a cycle that we go through where we say pop into human life or any sort of existence, any existence at all, becoming a particle. If there's a particle, it means that there's also not a particle. And I feel like some of this probably isn't making a whole lot of sense, but basically, if you have something, if you have one little particle that exists in existence, then it also means you have all the space around it, which is not a particle. And that means that you have two separate things. So even one particle is more than one thing. One particle equals two things, because you've got one particle and you've got the space around the particle that is not the particle. And so even with one thing in existence, that is not unity consciousness. You kind of popped out of that unified realm. But it does seem like we go into cycles, whether it's death. I mean, I think that personally, that death is probably just another form of like awareness. Our awareness probably doesn't stop after death, maybe for a little bit. But then it seems like we pretty much are going to pop back into awareness. And you can think of complete being and unified consciousness, like when you think about the sort of sleep cycle where you're not dreaming. It's a dreamless sleep. That's probably the closest thing that we can comprehend to being absolutely unified, is there's just nothing happening in our mind. We don't realize that anything exists. There's no dreams with different things happening. We're just wholly unaware. And so I guess the point I'm trying to get across, that I've probably said many times, is that basically unity consciousness is complete unawareness, which is kind of the opposite of what most people think. I think most people lean towards almost unity consciousness being like this enlightenment state where you're actually aware of basically everything. But in my opinion, that's pretty much impossible. I see the universe as being made up of different parts that kind of hold each other part in place. And maybe there's like this enlightened Godhead that is aware of everything all the time, but that doesn't seem like it's the case to me. It seems pretty impossible. I think that, like, if you think about it, if God was a human, if I'm God, and all the organs and cells and bacteria and all that are like the humans and creation living inside of me, it's not like I'm aware of everything that's happening in my body. I'm not aware of every little cell and every little infection and fluid and like where it's all at. Like, I hardly know anything about my body. And that's kind of the way that I view it now, is that we probably are just like one being, basically, and we're all contributing so that everything else can exist, and we're all basically one body. Everything in existence is basically one body, but it's not like the body of existence is aware of every single little part that's happening inside of it. And just like us, we're curious creatures, and we have scientists, and we're like always trying to figure that out. It's like, what is happening inside of me? And like, how do I figure myself out? And that's kind of how I see the universe being, is that the universe kind of just exists. It like popped into this awareness space where now all of a sudden it's aware that it exists, but it probably doesn't know much about itself, and it's really trying to learn everything that it can about itself. That's kind of how I view it, is like everything that's happening is the universe trying to discover itself. It's basically God trying to discover itself. But there's this realm outside of awareness, and I've talked about how you can kind of think of unconscious sleep as that. And I've also had an experience, the only experience I've ever had, other than maybe unconscious sleep, where I had this experience, and it was with 5-MeO DMT, which is toad venom that you smoke. And yeah, I basically popped into a space. It was like there was white light in the space, but there was nothing else other than white light. And so I lost all awareness of my body, all awareness of sensation, all awareness of thought. And so there was nothing there but white light. So there was nothing to contrast the white light. There were no thoughts. There was no understanding. There was no analyzing the white light and what space I was in. I was fully unaware. I didn't even realize that I was in white light until after I came down from the trip. And then I was like, oh, whoa, there was white light there. But I can only realize that now because I have things other than white light that I've come back to be like, okay, now I know that that was white light. But while I was in the white light, there was nothing, and I didn't exist, and nothing existed, nothing to contrast. So, yeah, and then that just kind of solidified, because I had these thoughts coming to me during my peyote session, just like a few days before the 5-MeO. Peyote is a cactus. That's also another psychedelic. And I just had these insights coming to me about beingness and how beingness is actually just total unawareness. And then it was like I got to experience this like hypothesis that was coming to me. Like I got to feel it experientially with the 5-MeO DMT that just kind of solidified like, yeah, that's true. So yeah, I think I just wanted to bring to people's awareness that unity consciousness probably isn't necessarily what we want. I think we want more of like a unified awareness where things are working together, like coherently, where we're all kind of working towards the greater good and we're all helping each part of the system to thrive. But that's not really unity consciousness. That's like a goal with tasks and parts and desires and all that. And once you have any of that, then you're out of unity consciousness. It's like we're kind of here to try and create something cool and unique and wonderful and healthy. And you can't do that if you're totally unified and like white light and love. There's nothing to do when you're in that. There's nothing to know or to learn or experience or create. So unity consciousness typically isn't exactly what you want unless you're someone who just does want to be fully enlightened and you do want to just not have any sort of experience anymore. You just want to be one with the white light forever, eternally, and never know anything ever again, because some people do want that. Like I've had periods in the past where like that's just what I want, and I think it's easier to want that when you aren't creating an incredible life and you have a lot of hardships and depression and all that. It's like I just don't want to deal with existence anymore. And so yeah, the unconsciousness sounds great, and I mean it is, you know, it's hard to say whether it's great or not. It's kind of just nothing. But there's no sadness or sorrow or depression or pain or anything like that. So it can definitely seem like a wonderful space when you are in pain, but it's not really what we're here doing now. So I think that's all that I'm going to really say in this video for right now. There's way more to talk about with this stuff. I just wanted to make a quick video. It's been a while. And if any of you have questions about this, I'd love to make more videos about this kind of stuff. If you have an opinion or a video request or anything like that, I'd love to hear that in the comments. That'll help motivate me to actually make videos. And if there's anything you didn't get, because even as I'm talking, I'm like feeling like this is maybe a little hard to follow, but I'd love to answer any questions. So thank y'all for watching. Gonna try to make more videos, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.